Chapter 131. I really envy you, little six, to be able to serve the Lord. It's said that he's like a celestial being. The manservant who called little six said with a face full of envy. It's all right. The manservant called little six also had a face full of pride. The Lord is actually very approachable and easy to get along with. The main thing is that his face is really as beautiful as a celestial being. It makes people forget everything when they see it. He said with a face full of worship and respect. Luo Qingtong, who was hiding in the tree, almost fell down when she heard this. Approachable and easy to get along with? Luo Qingtong thought of the few times she saw Yi Qianxian's icy face and suspected that there was something wrong with the manservant's eyes. Otherwise it would be nonsense. How could that man have anything to do with the words, approachable and easy to get along with? This was simply the biggest joke in the world. If he was considered approachable and easy to get along with, then her evil Dr. Ghost Eye would be the reincarnation of Maitreya Buddha. And what the hell was that beautiful celestial being? Luo Qingtong couldn't help but want to laugh when she heard this. She was sure that this manservant had never seen Yi Qianxian before. He had never even served him before. Otherwise, how could he say such things? She patiently squatted on the treetop and listened to the two manservants talk and flatter each other. After a while, the manservant named Little Six left with a satisfied expression on his face. Luo Qingtong quietly followed behind him. When he turned a corner, she suddenly appeared behind him and patted him on the shoulder. This is Brother Little Six. Luo Qingtong, dressed up as a manservant, was very delicate and pretty. She smiled at Little Six with a face full of harmlessness. I just heard you and that big brother chatting over there. Brother Little Six is very powerful. You can actually serve the Lord. I wonder if the Lord is scary? Luo Qingtong had already figured out the manservant called Little Six's personality. He liked to listen to people's praises. So the more she boasted, the less suspicious the other party would be and the easier it would be to get information. Sure enough, as soon as the other party heard this, he happily told her about it. He was nothing more than a High Lord. He wasn't scary at all. The High Lord treated him very well. If Luo Qingtong hadn't dealt with Yi Qianxian before, she would have thought that he was telling the truth. While she flattered him, she discreetly inquired about what medicine he was here for. After getting all the information she needed, Luo Qingtong gave him an enchanting smile and knocked him out. When the manservant fainted, his face was still full of shock. He didn't know how Luo Qingtong's temperament and appearance changed so much in an instant. After dealing with the manservant, Luo Qingtong directly took off the manservant's clothes and put them on herself. At the same time, she disguised herself as the manservant and swaggered towards the medicine storehouse. Who is it? Before she could get close to the storehouse, she was stopped by someone. I'm here to get the medicine for the Lord. Luo Qingtong straightened her body. That Little Six didn't have any token on him. Luo Qingtong guessed that the person in charge of the medicine storehouse probably knew him. So she deliberately straightened her back to let the other party see her clearly. At this time, if there was even the slightest bit of guilty conscience, he would be suspected. Sure enough, that person sized him up and then directly waved his hand to let him pass. Luo Qingtong entered the medicine storehouse and reported the medicinal herbs she got from Little Six one by one. At the end, she also added the Heaven's Heart Green Jade Fruit. Heaven's Heart Green Jade Fruit. Chapter 132. Luo Qingtong's heart skipped a beat. Just then she heard the man ask, "Did Lord say why he wanted the Heaven's Heart Jasper Fruit? There are a few medicinal properties that don't match with the ones that Lord asked for." The man said, "If they are mixed together, something bad will happen." Luo Qingtong heaved a sigh of relief. Of course, she knew about this and had already found a reason. I don't know about this. Perhaps Lord suddenly had a whim and wanted this medicinal herb. I don't necessarily need to use medicine. However, I will definitely tell the Great Lord about Senior's reminder when I meet him later. I will let him know of your sincerity. Luo Qingtong smiled. The man in charge of sorting the medicinal herbs felt at ease and nodded in satisfaction. He took the Heaven's Heart Jasper Fruit from the shelf and handed it to Luo Qingtong, saying, "Good. You rascal, we haven't seen each other for a day and you're already so good at talking. All right, take this medicinal herb. Remember to tell Lord that it can't be mixed together." Okay. Luo Qingtong smiled and took the Heaven's Heart Jasper Fruit. She placed it on the medicine tray and carried the pile of medicinal herbs out. After leaving the medicine storehouse, she walked all the way out. Just as she reached a secluded place and was about to leave with the medicinal herbs in her hands, a figure suddenly walked towards her. "What are you doing here?" The person saw Little Six and frowned. He walked up and asked rudely, Luo Qingtong was about to leave when she paused. She was just thinking about how to get rid of the other party when her lips twitched when she saw the other party's face clearly. Damn it. The person who came was none other than Bei Qing. He happened to be on his way here and didn't pay much attention to Luo Qingtong when he saw her. But when he recognized that she was the manservant who brought the medicinal herbs for his master, he immediately frowned and followed her. This was because the direction Luo Qingtong was walking in wasn't the direction of Yi Qianxian's residence. Luo Qingtong also recognized him as Yi Qianxian's personal bodyguard. She calculated in her heart and knew that if her identity was exposed in the city lord's mansion, she really wouldn't be able to get out. She immediately pretended to be frightened and said, I need to pee. As she spoke, her face turned red and she immediately lowered her head, not giving Bei Qing a chance to probe further. At this time, Luo Qingtong was very glad that she had thought of taking the medicine away. If she had abandoned the medicine tray and left with only the heavens will green jade fruit, she would have been exposed under Bei Qing's watchful eyes. How could this master and servant be so alike? Both of them were voyeurs. Need to pee. Luo Qingtong's words made Bei Qing stop in his tracks. Before he could react, Luo Qingtong had already lowered her head and apologized in fear as she hurriedly walked out. So sorry. I'll go deliver the medicine to the Lord right now. Luo Qingtong's performance was impeccable. Bei Qing frowned as he watched her leave. He thought for a while and then followed her secretly. Due to his sharp intuition as a bodyguard, he felt that something was wrong. Sensing that Bei Qing was secretly following her, Luo Qingtong cursed in her heart. She had originally wanted to find another opportunity to leave after she got rid of Bei Qing. She didn't expect to be targeted. That man was difficult to deal with, but the people around him were also difficult to deal with. What the hell? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. Chapter 133. In the main hall there was a burst of steam. Luo Qingtong stood outside the main hall with a tray of herbs in her hands. She couldn't take a step out of the main hall. Who could tell her what the hell was going on? Why was that man in the bath hall? Did he ask for a bunch of herbs just to soak himself in a bath? Luo Qingtong felt an indescribable pain in her balls. The picture of a handsome man bathing was very beautiful, but the problem was that this man wasn't that good looking. What if she was recognized? Luo Qingtong felt a wave of annoyance as she thought about it. Especially when she thought about her first encounter with Yi Qianxian, she felt that not only was her balls hurting, but her stomach was also hurting. Just as she was about to leave the herbs at the door and leave, the man's cold and deep voice sounded from inside. Come in. It was obvious that the man had sensed her arrival. Luo Qingtong braced herself and walked in with a tray of herbs. She had already kept the heaven's heart green jade fruit. If it weren't for Bei Qing causing trouble, she would have run away long ago. She hoped that this man would let her leave after putting the herbs in. Then everything would be fine. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she carefully carried the tray of herbs and walked into the bath hall. Lord, here are the herbs you asked for. Pour them in. The man sat in the middle of the huge bath without moving. 36 gigantic dragon heads were spitting out water from their mouths, making the bath palace look like a paradise on earth. The man's figure was hidden in the hazy mist, flickering in and out of existence. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't see him clearly. Luo Qingtong only raised her head to take a look before quickly lowering it. This man was really a one-of-a-kind evildoer. Even if he was half-naked, he was still irresistible. Luo Qingtong tried hard to control her eyes from wandering around. She was a servant. She definitely couldn't attract this man's attention. In front of Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong's every move was very careful. She gave full play to her acting skills from both her previous and current lives. She lowered her head and carried the medicine tray to the edge of the bathtub. Then she poured the herbs into the bathtub in an orderly manner. Regardless of whether it was his actions or his expression, they were all meticulous. The man in the bathtub did not raise his head to look at her. From beginning to end, his eyes were tightly shut. Luo Qingtong could vaguely see that Yi Qianxian seemed to be soaking in some kind of medicinal liquid from the rising steam. The medicine this time was different from the one she saw at the Nine Magi Mountain. It should be another prescription. Luo Qingtong's curiosity rose as she thought about it. She didn't know what kind of injury the man had. Why was it so strange? With his strength and status, he actually couldn't find an alchemist who could heal his internal injuries? As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she was slightly distracted. At this moment, there was a sudden movement in the bathtub. Luo Qingtong raised her head and instantly saw a naked man. He was really naked. There was no cover at all. She stared blankly at the man in the middle of the bathtub as he stood up. That slim waist and narrow buttocks, strong and powerful body full of masculine charm and hormones, was completely exposed in front of her. The huge thing below was also incomparably clear. Plop. Chapter 134. What? The sound was simply too loud. Xianxia turned his head and looked over. Seeing Luo Qingtong fall into the water, his brows furrowed. He instantly appeared beside her and grabbed her. At the same time, Luo Qingtong reacted the moment she fell into the water. F***ck, this is going to cause trouble. Thinking about how she had tried so hard not to attract this man's attention, but had failed because she fell into the water, her face instantly turned bitter. Ba, I hope that man doesn't notice me. I'm such a fool. Isn't it just a man's naked body? It's not like I haven't seen it before. What's there to be shocked about? As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she raised her hand to grab the edge of the bathtub. At this moment, a figure appeared beside her. Then, a strong and powerful arm suddenly grabbed her and lifted her up. However, that figure was stuck between Luo Qingtong and the edge of the bathtub. Luo Qingtong watched helplessly as her hand grabbed a certain part of the man's body. Oh. What? The moment she was lifted out of the water, a man's painful groan suddenly came from above her head. Feeling the warmth and length of the object in her hand, Luo Qingtong released her hand as if she had been electrocuted. My lord, I can explain. She felt her scalp go numb as she raised her head. She met the man's pair of cold eyes due to his pain and anger. At this moment, his eyes were already red. My lord, this is really just an accident. Luo Qingtong tried her best to save herself. At this moment, she could only pray that Xianxia was kind enough to not blame a pitiful and ignorant servant like her. Otherwise, she would have to expose her identity. However, her eyes were clear now. She was fine. Now that she was exposed, the suspicion of the evil doctor that she had previously cleared would definitely follow. God, do you have to play with me like this? Xianxia looked coldly at the trembling servant in front of him. Although he was extremely angry, he didn't have the energy to deal with her. Scram. He suddenly raised his hand and flung Luo Qingtong away. Bam! Luo Qingtong's body somersaulted a few times in the air before she could stand firmly on the ground. At this moment, she was already at the entrance of the inner hall, a few meters away from the bathtub. Did I escape? This man actually didn't make a move? Luo Qingtong heaved a sigh of relief, touched her heart that was beating rapidly in her chest, and hurriedly wanted to run out. Of course, it was for the best. Anyway, she had the medicine. Let's get out of here. However, just as she was about to leave, she turned around to take a look. She was shocked by what she saw. The man fainted at the edge of the bathtub and blood started to seep out of his body. The blood flowed into the bath and was dissolved by the medicinal bath's aura. The red and white colors created a charming, enchanting, and shocking scene. It can't be. This man, his injury acted up again? Thinking of the scene when Xianxia had just stood up, Luo Qingtong's heart flashed with a trace of understanding. Could it be that he had already felt something was wrong with his body at that time? That's why he got up and wanted to leave. He was only stopped by her falling into the water for a moment. Then she grabbed his vital part. He couldn't control the aura in his body and exploded. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she thought of this. What kind of King ill-fated relationship is this? Chapter 135. I really owe it to you. She muttered in her heart as she dragged the man out of the pool. Xianxia's body was still bleeding even after she left the bathtub. It was still the same unscathed scene that Luo Qingtong had seen before. Seeing this scene, Luo Qingtong muttered angrily in her heart and raised her hand to grab the man's wrist. At this moment, her gaze accidentally landed on something on the man's lower body. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched violently and she turned around with her eyes closed. She wasn't shy. That thing was too big. It kept occupying her attention. Can't you let me treat him properly? She glared fiercely at the man's handsome face in front of her and washed her eyes with her beautiful face. Luo Qingtong calmed herself down and used her eye technique to transfer her energy into the man's body. It was the same as the man she met at Nine Magi Mountain. More than half of his meridians were ruptured and it seemed to be getting worse. Luo Qingtong frowned and discovered that nearly half of the man's meridians had not been repaired. They were still the same old injuries as before. What was going on? Wasn't the healing medicine that he was soaking in previously specially used to repair meridians? Why weren't these old injuries healed? Luo Qingtong frowned and didn't have time to think. She hurriedly repaired the man's broken main meridians. She only complained as she repaired them. This man was so valiant that he didn't treat himself as a human. These main meridians were actually forcefully ruptured by the medicine's power. So he soaked in the pool for half a day just to rupture his main meridians? How could he not think things through? That's why he was torturing himself like this. Luo Qingtong didn't know what to say. She used all her energy to repair Yi Qianxian's meridians while using her eye technique to inspect his body. She wanted to find the reason why his meridians ruptured so easily. Luo Qingtong had seen the medicine that he was soaking in earlier. The medicine's power wasn't strong. With this man's strength, his meridians shouldn't be ruptured by this little bit of medicine. What else did he do? Furthermore, the stronger a martial cultivator was, the stronger their body would be. Even soul cultivators, when their psychic power reached a certain peak, would strengthen their bodies. How could this man's meridians be so weak? Luo Qingtong furrowed her brows and searched his body. For a heaven-defying eye technique master like her, there were very few things in the world that she couldn't see through. If there was, she would do everything she could to find the reason. This could be considered a unique hobby of Luo Qingtong. In her previous life, Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianren was very powerful and Luo Qingtong would not provoke him normally. But now that he was unconscious, she naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. If it wasn't for this man's insistence on holding on to her, she would have used her identity as an evil doctor to treat his injuries and study his strange injuries. TSK. Strange, he's fine. How could his meridians rupture for no reason? Luo Qingtong checked Yi Qianxian's body from top to bottom. She even checked every single blood vessel. She just didn't know how such a strange thing could happen to his body. His meridians were as thin as paper, as if they would naturally rupture with a light touch. If it wasn't for this man's valiant strength, he would have been a cripple by now. Here came the problem. Chapter 136. Luo Qingtong couldn't figure it out. Most people wouldn't think about it if they couldn't figure it out. But Luo Qingtong wasn't the same. There weren't many things in this world that she couldn't figure out. She could even cure a legendary disease like the soul detachment illness. There was no reason for her to stumble in front of this man's strange injury. She frowned and continued to investigate the man's body. There must be a reason. There shouldn't be anything in this world that she couldn't see through. Just like this, Luo Qingtong's power cycled through Yi Qianxian's body again and again. Every cycle brought back a bit of the man's power. By the time she discovered that something was wrong with her body, and her meridians were in so much pain that they felt like they were about to explode, the accumulation of power in her body had already reached a peak. Fuck. Is this man really a perfect tonic pill? Luo Qingtong looked at the power in her body that was stuffed to the brim with shock. Although the man's aura could only be brought back a bit each cycle, this was incomparably powerful to Luo Qingtong. Previously, she had only repaired his main meridians, and her strength had rapidly increased to the 9th stage of the martial master realm. At this time, Luo Qingtong was immersed in investigating Yi Qianxian's injury. Unknowingly, the aura in her body had already soared to the 9th stage of the martial general realm. Not only that, but her strength was also constantly increasing, wanting to break through to the martial general realm. At the same time, Luo Qingtong's spiritual power had also merged with the man's aura and increased to the level of a 9-star spirit master. No. She couldn't let her strength increase any further. Luo Qingtong subconsciously suppressed the power in her body, not allowing it to increase any further. Her jump from the martial master realm to the 9th stage of the martial general realm was already very shocking. If it increased any further, her body's foundation wouldn't be able to keep up with the growth of her strength. This was the reason why Luo Qingtong's meridians were tingling with pain at this moment. If this continued, even if she increased her strength, her weak foundation would cause her strength to be lower than those of the same level. More importantly, this F*King improvement was too fast and too exciting. Luo Qingtong had only been away from the Luo family for a little more than a month, but her strength had soared from the initial stage of martial master to the great martial general realm or even higher. Wasn't this a F*King trap? The effects of the 9 Magi Mountains mutation were still lingering. According to the information that Luo Qingtong had obtained from the Black Field, the Empire of Qin had sent people to investigate Jianghu Mountain. At this time, her strength had increased so quickly. Wasn't this telling others that this person might have obtained the inheritance of the celestial sect of the 9 Shamans Mountain? Thinking of the benefits and troubles left by the Immortal Slayer Palace, Luo Qingtong had a headache and held her forehead. She hastily suppressed the aura in her body. However, even if she could suppress the aura in her body, she couldn't suppress the aura of that man. What the F***ck? Husky. Luo Qingtong endured the pain of the energy in her body crashing left and right. She turned back to look at Yi Qianren. Most of his meridians had been repaired, there shouldn't be any problems. The rest was up to him. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong jumped up and rushed out of the bathroom. Her body was trembling slightly from the pain. Although she stumbled as she rushed out of the bathroom, it looked like she had been scolded and rushed out in a hurry. Chapter 137. Swish, swish. Luo Qingtong bit her lips and ran as fast as she could as soon as she got out of the city lord's mansion. She wanted to vent her power. Not long after she left, Bei Qing and the others realized that something was wrong and rushed into the bathroom. Master. Bei Qing and the others were shocked when they saw Yi Qianxian lying on the ground. Quick. Prepare the heavenly flying boat. Bring Master back to the main city immediately. Bei Qing said without hesitation when she saw Yi Qianxian's bleeding body. Feng Yu carried Yi Qianxian on his back. Everyone rushed out of the city lord's mansion. Not long after, the huge and beautiful flying boat rose into the sky. Many people looked at this scene in surprise. They didn't know why Ming Zun suddenly left the Blackfield subcity. In the mountains, Luo Qingtong's figure swept up a gust of wind and swept forward. Her destination was the place that Chu Lingfeng mentioned before, the place where his mother had an accident when she was picking herbs. It was also the place where the 1,000-year soul guiding wood was. Bang, bang, bang. Luo Qingtong's figure swept into the dense forest. Countless trees and grass were cut into pieces by the sharp wind that swept up by her body. The girl's figure was extremely fast. Almost every place she landed was the most suitable place for her to sweep away. In just a moment she had swept forward for nearly a few thousand meters. At this moment, the pair of eyes with distinct black and white had returned to being empty and black because of the time limit of Tian Mingzi's power had run out. Wisps of bloody light flickered and jumped from her eyes, making the girl look like a Shura goddess from hell. The flower of dark prison. Bang, bang, bang. Many demonic beasts in the forest were slaughtered before they could see Luo Qingtong's figure clearly. At the same time, Luo Qingtong jumped to the top of the tree and roared towards the sky with a deafening roar. The bloody light in her eyes became more and more obvious. Kill? The power in Luo Qingtong's body was restless. In order to prevent him from breaking through, she had placed a spiritual suggestion on him, making him unable to break through to the next realm. If one's cultivation level did not increase, one's strength would not be able to be released. The only way to do that was to release the energy that had nowhere to go in her body through external forces. However, with so much power, especially the power of a man, that allowed her to break through without any hindrance, it was too much of a pity to disperse it just like that. Luo Qingtong could only try her best to find the location of the Millennium Soul Guiding Wood. With that thing she would be able to seal the power in her body as much as possible. In the future he would wait for the right opportunity to use it. Swish swish swish. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed through the mountains. Chu Lingfeng wasn't very detailed. If they wanted to find the Millennium Soul Guiding Wood, they had to rely on Luo Qingtong herself. However, she had her eye technique. As long as she followed the path with the densest yin qi, she would be able to find the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. Swish. After searching for a period of time, Luo Qingtong finally found the 1,000-year soul guiding wood when the power in her body couldn't bear it anymore. The huge crown of the tree covered the sky and the sun. This black 1,000-year soul guiding wood was like a monster standing in the depths of the mountains. Its whole body emitted a terrible evil aura. Around it, countless evil spirits were waving their fangs and brandishing their claws. Along with the swaying leaves and branches of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood, they felt Luo Qingtong's living aura and silently roared at her with their mouths wide open. At the same time, bursts of soul-sucking aura were emitted from the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. Interesting, it actually has spiritual intelligence. Feeling that those evil spirits were controlled by the 1,000-year soul guiding wood and didn't rush up, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. The blood-red light in her eyes was full of interest. No wonder Chu Lingfeng's mother could come back alive after encountering such a scene. Chapter 138. Swish. Luo Qingtong's figure appeared within the alluring range of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. Luo Qingtong restrained the bloody light in her eyes and the restless power in her body. With a wooden face, she pretended to be tempted by the 1,000-year soul guiding wood and walked towards its center step by step. This 1,000-year soul guiding wood had already matured. Demonic plants with spiritual awakening were extremely ferocious. In particular, This 1,000-year soul guiding wood had no one to guide it at the beginning of its spiritual awakening. It had already started killing, and its ferocious aura was even stronger. Once it started killing, it meant that it was almost impossible for this 1,000-year soul guiding wood to pass the transformation tribulation. The heavens would not allow such a murderous demonic plant to pass the transformation tribulation. Unless someone helped it, this 1,000-year soul guiding wood could only stop here for the rest of its life. Unfortunately, there were many demonic beasts and demonic plants in this world that were unable to awaken their spiritual awakening. Even if they grew for tens of millions of years, they still could not transcend. And this 1,000-year soul guiding wood was only 1,000 years old, and it already had such an opportunity. But because it took the wrong path, it was cut off from the opportunity. However, this had nothing to do with Luo Qingtong. She walked forward step by step under the allure of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. As she approached, the surrounding ghosts were restless. Sensing Luo Qingtong's aura as a living person, they wanted to pounce on her all the time, but they were restrained by the 1,000-year soul guiding wood and could not move. They could only open their mouths and roar invisibly. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Luo Qingtong was getting closer and closer under the alluring effect of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. Just as she walked under the heart of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood, the trunk of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood suddenly opened, revealing a trunk full of sharp teeth. It was stained with blood, and there were still pieces of flesh and bones hanging on it. In the heart of the tree one could still see the dense white bones inside. Now is the time. The bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly flashed. In an instant, she broke free from the alluring power of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. To her, the soul-sucking ability of this 1,000-year-old soul guiding wood was not as powerful as her eye technique. In her previous life, when Luo Qing's pupils were at their peak, the moment she used her pupil technique, even those who wanted to kill her would be controlled by her pupil technique as long as their willpower was not firm enough. What was the soul-sucking power of this 1,000-year-old soul guiding wood? Boom. Luo Qingtong avoided the mouth of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood and went straight for the 1,000-year tree core in its trunk. This was the essence of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. With this tree core, the 1,000-year soul guiding wood was truly a 1,000-year soul guiding wood. Only its tree trunk had the power to guide souls. That was why there were so many miraculous things. What Luo Qingtong needed to do now was to take out the tree core. With this tree core, Luo Qingtong could easily obtain another millennium soul guiding wood in the future. Moreover, it was much cleaner than this one. She found the power of the 1,000-year-old soul guiding wood to be dirty. Screech. The 1,000-year soul guiding wood didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be able to break free from its soul-sucking power. In an instant, it let out a sharp cry. That huge tree trunk's mouth quickly closed, wanting to wrap the tree core back into it. At the same time, the leaves and branches around it suddenly gathered together and turned into sharp blades, cutting towards Luo Qingtong. The surrounding malicious spirits were also released. They screamed and pounced towards Luo Qingtong. Bursts of chilly wind assailed her nostrils, and the smell of blood assaulted her face. Luo Qingtong's expression didn't change. Chapter 139. Boom. The suppressed aura in Luo Qingtong's body suddenly erupted. The man's aura that entered her body was too strong. Even if only a trace of it was left each time, it was enough to make Luo Qingtong's body explode. If she was willing to advance, it wouldn't matter. This power would only help her. However, Luo Qingtong was unwilling to advance, so this power in her body became a disaster. At this moment, this power was completely released by her. Rumble. Cyclones suddenly exploded around Luo Qingtong's body. The power that rushed out of her body suddenly formed a strong and powerful vortex aura, stirring up the air around her, forming a scene like a tornado. All the leaves and branches that rushed out from the 1,000-year soul guiding wood like sharp blades were all twisted into pieces by this sudden burst of tyrannical power. At the same time, Luo Qingtong also drew out the life and death sword that suddenly appeared in her hand. The power of the death blade was quickly activated. Almost instantly, the black death chi filled the air. The black death chi that was heavier than the yin chi suddenly turned into a scythe of the death god under Luo Qingtong's wave, sweeping through the air. Buff, buff. The sharp screams of the ghosts that rushed over were all turned into green smoke under this attack, dissipating between heaven and earth. The life blade replenished and the death blade harvested. When the life and death sword that carried the profound meaning of life and death transformed into the death blade, it was the most feared weapon of these ghosts. These ghosts were controlled by the Millennium Soul Guiding Wood and were drawn out of the souls of living people. They were immortal in this world, neither souls nor ghosts. In this special state, ordinary yang treasures couldn't do anything to them. Just by looking at how they could appear in the daytime, one could know how difficult they were to deal with. However, when the life and death sword in Luo Qingtong's hand transformed into the death blade, it was the nemesis of all dead things in the world. These ghosts weren't afraid of sunlight or yang treasures, but they could not be afraid of Luo Qingtong's death blade. Ah! Shrill screams could be heard in the air. Wherever Luo Qingtong's death blade passed, the Yin spirits would shriek and be cut into wisps of green smoke, disappearing from this world. These evil spirits were the most important life-saving means of the 1,000-year-old soul-guiding wood. By relying on these spirits, it had killed countless powerhouses who wanted to seize its 1,000-year tree core. But at this moment, the method it relied on to save its life was under Luo Qingtong's death blade. Under the tyrannical power that burst forth from the young girl's body, it suddenly shattered. Screech! The 1,000-year soul-guiding wood shrieked. Its trunk kept squirming, trying to move the 1,000-year tree heart away. However, it was too late. Luo Qingtong grabbed the tree heart hanging high in the air and gave it a hard tug. In the next second, the 1,000-year soul-guiding would let out an incomparably mournful cry. The moment the tree heart left its body, the entire huge 1,000-year soul-guiding would withered in an instant. As for the Yin spirits that were imprisoned around it, they were all reduced to ashes in an instant amidst shrill screams. The 1,000-year soul-guiding wood was dead. The spirits were all turned into ashes. Those evil spirits could be considered to have been freed. Chapter 140. Senior brother, look. Someone in the team raised his hand and pointed forward. Xuanhuan raised his head and his eyes instantly froze. In front of him, green smoke rose, mixed with countless gray qi and quickly spread from the sky. The dense yin qi instantly caused his pupils to shrink. It's the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood. Let's go. Xuanhuan came for the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood. This time he was ordered by his teacher to walk outside. Among the tasks he received, there was a requirement to obtain the heart of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood. This was also his last task in the outside world. After obtaining the heart of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood, he could complete the task perfectly and return to the Saint Academy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stayed in this black field subsidy after being humiliated by Luo Qingtong. For Xuanhuan, this black field subsidy and Luo Qingtong were his most unbearable memories. However, he had just received news from a chamber of commerce that there might be a 1,000-year soul-guiding wood here. Would there be a mistake? Thinking of this, Xuanhuan quickly rushed forward. He was so fast that the freshmen of the Saint Academy behind him had to use all their strength to keep up with him. If it weren't for his junior sister in the team and the fact that she might encounter danger in this mountain range, Xuanhuan would have already left them behind and left by himself. When they arrived at the location of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood, Luo Qingtong had just put away the life and death yin-yang sword and was about to leave with the heart of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood. Noticing that someone was quickly approaching, Luo Qingtong frowned and quickly tore off her manservant's clothes, wearing only a set of white inner clothes. At the same time, she covered her face with a light-colored veil. Luo Qingtong had the Rakshasa mask that she used to disguise herself as the evil doctor, but at this time she wasn't wearing any disguise, so it wasn't suitable for her to use it. She had just finished doing all this when Xuanhuan and the others rushed out from the grass. 1,000-year soul-guiding wood. How could Xuanhuan and the others not know that the heart of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood had already been obtained by the young lady on the other side? Luo Qingtong was wearing a white undergarment. The thin inner garment was of excellent quality, completely outlining the girl's graceful figure. Standing beside the huge pitch-black withered 1,000-year soul-guiding wood, Luo Qingtong's white inner garment was blown up by the wind, and the veil covering her face was also blown up. The collision of black and white made the girl's figure seem even more ethereal. She was as beautiful as a celestial in a painting. Many of the freshmen of the Sacred Institute were stunned by the scene. The young girl was like a fairy that had walked out from the depths of the mountains, making people unable to bear to disturb her. Especially when she glanced over when she heard the commotion. Her eyebrows swayed, and she was as beautiful as a painting. Mississippi, even the anxious Xuanhuan felt suffocated the moment he saw Luo Qingtong. In his life, he had never seen such a quick-witted and beautiful girl. Luo Qingtong stood in the deep and gloomy shadow of the 1,000-year soul-guiding wood, but she was like a huge luminous body, attracting people's attention. Just a glance at her made people feel as if they were about to fall in love with her. There was a kind of beauty in this world. Even if you only peeked at a corner of her silhouette, You would be deeply immersed in her, unable to extricate yourself. Seeing Xuanhuan's obviously sluggish expression, a pretty girl in a yellow dress from the Sacred Institute's team suddenly had a touch of jealousy in her eyes, and she suddenly attacked. Pretending to be mysterious, quickly hand over the heart of the 1,000-year tree. That's ours. Chapter 141. Junior Sister. The woman's attack was too sudden and Xuanhua couldn't stop her in time. Seeing the pitch-black crow-bone whip approaching, Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a cold blood-red light. With her eyesight, she was naturally able to tell that the crow-bone whip was covered in a strange and intense pain. If an ordinary person touched it, their entire body would fester as long as they were wounded. This woman was vicious. Junior Sister? This was the junior sister that Xuanhua had asked her to save using her identity as the demonic doctor? He said that there was a problem with her meridians. In his opinion, she was doing quite well right now. Luo Qingtong sneered and her eyes flashed with a blood-red light. In the next second she didn't dodge or evade. Instead, she raised her hand and grabbed at the incoming crow-bone whip. Miss, you can't. Seeing Luo Qingtong's hand reaching for the whip, Xuanhua, who knew his junior sister's temperament, panicked and immediately shouted. The yellow-robed woman's face was filled with joy. But when she heard Xuanhua shout, her face sank. Her eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness. She raised her hand and the crow-bone whip whipped towards Luo Qingtong's face at a crafty angle. I'll pull off this slut's veil and leave a mark on her face. Let's see how she can use this face to seduce others. The yellow-robed woman thought hatefully. Sensing the change in the whip's angle, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and her expression became even colder. There was a path to heaven but you didn't take it. There was no door to hell but you barged in. Since she wanted to disfigure others, then she would let her have a good taste of it. Pa. Luo Qingtong didn't move, but her palm flipped along with the changing angle of the long whip, accurately grabbing the tip of the long whip. Her opponent's whip technique, which he thought was ever-changing, was completely unfathomable before her eye technique. What a vicious heart. I'll return this poison to you. Shwa. With a cold snort, Luo Qingtong's palm fiercely stroked the tip of the whip. In an instant, the long whip was like a dragon, and it was pulled into a line under her hand. At the same time, Luo Qingtong instantly added and deleted the poisonous aura. With a swoosh, she suddenly raised her hand, and this long whip was like a rebounding snake. In an instant, with a speed even faster than before and an even more tricky angle, it suddenly attacked back. The woman in yellow was completely caught off guard. She screamed and covered her face. The whip suddenly bounced back and viciously lashed her face, leaving a wound so deep that her bones could be seen. How dare you hurt me? The yellow-clothed woman felt a sharp pain on her face. She lifted her hand and touched the blood on her face. She was on the verge of collapse. Her face. Junior Sister. Seeing the yellow-clothed woman injured, the faces of Xuanhua and the others changed. This junior sister was their teacher's only beloved daughter. They had to take good care of her for sneaking out. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences if their teacher questioned them. Junior Sister, are you all right? They all surrounded her. At this moment, the yellow-clothed woman suddenly screamed. Ah, my face. It's so itchy. It hurts. As she spoke, she desperately scratched her face. Xuanhua and the others heard this and looked at her face. With a single glance, they all sucked in a breath. Junior Sister. Chapter 142. The wound on the yellow-robed woman's face was rapidly festering. The wound was festering at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, the skin near the wound had completely festered. In an instant, the delicate and beautiful junior sister had turned into a demon. Not only that, the festering flesh near the wound was constantly wriggling as if something was growing. In a short while, a mournful and strange face was struggling to break out of the wound, silently roaring near the wound. Xuanhua and the others felt a chill run down their spines when they saw this ghostly scene. Junior Sister. What poison did you smear on your whip? Quickly take out the antidote and consume it. Xuanhua anxiously called out to her. The yellow-robed woman scratched her face with all her might, until the festering flesh was badly mutilated and pus and blood flowed out, but it didn't relieve the itch at all. Through everyone's gazes, she discovered that an extremely frightening change had occurred on her face and immediately began to cry. I didn't. I smeared bone-rotting poison on it. It won't itch. It's her. It must be her. It's this woman. She did something to my whip. As the yellow-robed woman spoke, she raised her hand and pointed at Luo Qingtong, who was wiping her fingers and preparing to leave. Seeing her finger pointing at her, the latter immediately raised her eyebrows and generously admitted it. "That's right, I did it. So what?" Giving her a taste of her own medicine. "I don't think I did anything wrong. Moreover, the raw material of the poison was the bone-rotting poison that you smeared on it." Luo Qingtong spoke until here and lightly laughed. "You should be glad that the bone-rotting poison isn't strong enough. And I don't have enough materials on hand, otherwise you would be in an even worse state." "What did you say? You bitch." The yellow-robed woman was flustered by Luo Qingtong's words. Then she faced the crowd of the holy court and cried. "Senior brother, look, she admitted it. She poisoned me. She wanted to harm me. Why aren't you all taking revenge for me? While you're at it, take back the 1,000-year tree heart." "Junior sister." Yuanma berated her, then looked at Luo Qingtong. "Miss, it was indeed my junior sister who acted rashly this time. Please don't blame her. We don't want the 1,000-year tree heart anymore. Please help us cure the poison on my junior sister's face." "Ha!" Luo Qingtong chuckled. "The 1,000-year tree heart is mine to begin with. What do you mean you don't want it? As for the poison on her face, it was her own doing. I don't have the antidote." Luo Qingtong had injected the yin qi of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood into the bone-corroding poison, changing the toxicity of the bone-corroding poison. How could there be an antidote? It wasn't difficult to save the woman in yellow, as long as Luo Qingtong was willing to use her eye technique to force out the mixed yin qi and poison from her body. But why would Luo Qingtong do this? Since the other party had a vicious heart, this face was quite compatible with her. A rotten person with a rotten face, a perfect match made in heaven. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she leaped and was about to leave. How could Yuanma and the others let her go just like that? They could give up the 1,000-year tree heart. But nothing could happen to their junior sister. Otherwise, how could they explain it to their teacher? "Miss, leave the antidote. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave," Yuanma says and rushes towards Luo Qingtong to stop her. Behind him, the freshmen of the holy court also rush over. Chapter 143. "Ha!" Luo Qingtong chuckled. The next second, the bloody light in her eyes flickered. In a flash, she passed by the freshmen of the Saint Academy who came to intercept her. Their numbers were of no use to Luo Qingtong. In fact, it had even helped her to leave. "Ah, senior brother." The freshmen of the Saint Academy who rushed to Luo Qingtong first saw Luo Qingtong disappear in a flash. Instead, they saw Yuanma rushing to Luo Qingtong from behind. "Senior brother, dodge." They hurriedly shouted. These freshmen of the Saint Academy didn't know what was going on. They had clearly surrounded that young girl, so how did she manage to escape from their encirclement in such a short time? Not only that, why were their attacks aimed at their senior brother? Yuanmo's face turned cold when he saw their attacks coming. He quickly changed directions in the air and dodged the attacks. But in this way his speed inevitably decreased. Swish! With this dodge, Luo Qingtong's figure appeared hundreds of meters away from them. The girl's figure swayed like a fairy. Her waist was light, like a willow branch in the wind. She stood at the top of a new branch. Luo Qingtong turned back to look at them. Her lips curled into a smile. Her picturesque eyes and brows were so beautiful that they could almost feel her beauty through the veil. "A genius of the Saint Academy? You're just a so-so." She chuckled. While speaking, she suddenly let go of the slender branch in her hand. In the next second, Luo Qingtong's figure followed the movement of the branch and soared into the sky like a green bird. She flew over the distant mountains and into the distance. Yuanma and others chased after her, but they couldn't catch up with her. In their sight, there was only the delicate and beautiful figure of the girl. She was as light as a fairy. She completely disappeared in front of them. Yuanma stared at Luo Qingtong's disappearing figure with deep eyes. In his mind, the girl's smile kept replaying over and over again. Wanton, free and unfettered. The dazzling elegance of it completely overshadowed the scenery of the distant new sky. Even those derogatory words didn't sound so infuriating. This was the first time that Yuanma felt his heart move. That young girl, who was she? Just as Yuanma's heart was stirred, Luo Qingtong's figure had already passed through the treetops, and in an instant she had entered the depths of the mountain range. After finding a secluded and safe place, she disguised herself and headed straight out of the mountain range. On the way she met Yuanma and the others from afar. The latter and the others were unable to defeat Luo Qingtong. Without obtaining the antidote, they didn't dare to stay in the mountain range any longer. They hurriedly left with the yellow-robed woman. Luo Qingtong guessed that they would return to the sacred academy soon. After all, the poison on the yellow-clothed woman's face wasn't something that could be easily cured. But even if they returned to the sacred academy, it wouldn't be that easy to cure. Ignoring them, Luo Qingtong avoided meeting Yuanma and the others and headed straight for the Blackfield subcity. Just as she was about to enter the huge dark city, Luo Qingtong's footsteps suddenly stopped. She thought of the man she had left in the bath hall halfway through her treatment. "You should be fine, right?" Luo Qingtong felt inexplicably guilty. Speaking of which, he was very unlucky every time he met her. God knows if she really didn't do it on purpose. Luo Qingtong felt a toothache when she thought about it. Just then she heard the discussions around her. Chapter 144. Luo Qingtong's heart shuddered. Her mansion? Luo Qingtong slowed down her steps and looked at the gossipy people beside her. Those people didn't notice her and continued to talk. Speaking of which, a lot of things have happened in the past 2 days. First, we don't know what happened, then Ming Zun suddenly left. Now, something happened to the evil doctor's mansion. Yes, someone responded. I heard that someone came to seek revenge and was killed in the middle of the night. When the people from the bloody arena arrived, many people were killed and injured. The evil doctor's homosexual slave lover was also taken away. Luo Qingtong stopped listening when she heard this. Homosexual slave lover? The only one who could meet this condition was Su Yu. Luo Qingtong didn't care where this rumor came from. She got up and rushed to her mansion. She finally found a suitable personal attendant with great difficulty, but someone dared to come and find trouble with her. They took away her people. They even injured the people in her mansion. Luo Qingtong's face darkened completely. It was true that if the tiger didn't show its might, they would treat her like a sick cat. Swish swish swish. Luo Qingtong's figure appeared in her mansion. At this moment there was a mess everywhere in the mansion. Outside the door there were blood stains like splashes of ink. Even after washing, the traces could still be seen. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold as she stepped into the mansion's door. Who is it? There were still war slaves guarding the door. When they saw someone coming in, they immediately attacked. Luo Qingtong grabbed his fist and threw him aside. Call out all the people in the mansion who are still alive. Luo Qingtong said in a low voice. The Rakshasa mask on her face looked ferocious and terrifying at this moment. She looked at the war slave in front of her calmly. The latter was stunned for a moment and then shouted in surprise. Master! Master is back! Everyone gather! Master is back! The war slave's voice echoed in the mansion. In an instant, the slaves that Luo Qingtong had purchased appeared in front of her one by one. Among them was Chu Lingfeng. Master! You're back! Seeing Luo Qingtong, Chu Lingfeng immediately rushed over. The 1.8 m tall blockhead was covered in injuries. There were bone-deep wounds and blood everywhere. Many of the battle slaves behind him were in the same situation. What's going on? Luo Qingtong glanced at them and walked straight into the main hall. She looked at everything coldly. Luo Qingtong asked in a deep voice as she glanced at the severely injured battle slaves. She immediately sealed their lifelines with a flick of her finger and fed them a bottle of life-prolonging medicinal liquid. Master, someone is here to seek revenge. They are specifically targeting Su Yu. Chu Lingfeng said in a loud voice. It turned out that after Luo Qingtong had bought Su Yu, someone had immediately come to buy slaves. Moreover, they had specified that they wanted to buy Su Yu. After being rejected by the slave market, they had inquired about it. After learning that it was Luo Qingtong who had bought Su Yu, they had come to buy Su Yu back. Chu Lingfeng originally thought that these people were Su Yu's relatives. He didn't expect that Su Yu's complexion would change greatly after seeing these people. The two sides almost clashed on the spot. That night those people came to kill them. Chapter 145. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Behind the Rakshasa mask, a pair of empty black eyes overflowed with murderous intent and flashed with blood-red light. No one can touch the people around me without my permission. How dare you seek revenge on me? You're courting death. The blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes was ice-cold. Go and call the people from the bloody arena. Tell them that if something like this happens in my mansion in the Blackfield again, then my cooperation with them will be terminated. Even in the Blackfield, there were people seeking revenge on her. What was the use of having such a partner? There were so many forces in the Blackfield. Why couldn't she cooperate with anyone? Why did she have to work with the bloody arena? They had really let her down. This time, Su Yu's arrest had completely touched Luo Qingtong's nerves. Even if it was a cat or a dog, she wouldn't allow others to touch the people around her. Whoever dared to reach out would be chopped off. If those people dared to seek revenge on her, then they were seeking their own deaths. Lord Evil Doctor. The people from the bloody arena were called over by Chu Lingfeng and the others. They immediately lowered their heads and kept wiping away their sweat. This time, it was indeed our bloody arena's mistake. They didn't expect that someone would dare to attack the Lord Evil Doctor's mansion in the Black Field. Where did this hothead come from? He didn't even put the dignity of the Black Field in his eyes. Or did those people think that no one would know if they came in secret? The people from the bloody arena thought for a while and gnashed their teeth. Don't let him find those people. Otherwise, without waiting for the Lord Evil Doctor to make a move, they would all be killed. Lord Evil Doctor, don't worry. We've already mobilized all our connections to find out the whereabouts of those people. There won't be a next time. Luo Qingtong interrupted him. The pair of cold eyes on the Rakshasa mask looked at him coldly. If there's a next time, you people from the bloody arena don't have to come to me anymore. As for these people this time, you don't have to care about them. Those who dared to touch her people, she would let those people know the price. Yes. The steward of the bloody arena didn't dare to say more. He hurriedly wiped his cold sweat and retreated. This Lord Evil Doctor's power was too strong. Facing the other party, he felt as if he was facing a high lord. What the hell? Chu Lingfeng was puzzled as he watched the steward of the bloody arena leave, sweating profusely. Master, why don't we let them investigate? Wouldn't he be able to find out the whereabouts of those people faster and rescue Su Yu if he made those people in the bloody arena weaker? Chu Lingfeng still cared a lot about the young man who spoke good words for him in front of the master. Other than his master, he only recognized Su Yu as his companion. There's no need. Someone knows the whereabouts of those people better than them. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she sneered and walked to a parasol tree in front of the courtyard. She lifted her foot and kicked it hard. Do you want to come out by yourselves, or do you want me to drag you out one by one? She crossed her arms and said. The person who was hiding on the parasol tree felt a wave of bewilderment. Did the evil doctor discover that they were waiting for him? Just as they were hesitating, Luo Qingtong became impatient. She directly asked Chu Lingfeng to bring a bucket of water over. With a bang, she poured the water on top of the parasol tree. Chapter 146. Bang, bang. There were two muffled sounds. Ouch. Two figures were thrown out of it. Are you satisfied? Luo Qingtong looked at them, then raised her hand and clapped twice. Everyone else, come out now. Luo Qingtong crossed her arms and stood in the middle of the courtyard. She looked coldly at the two people who fell out and swept her gaze across the courtyard. The face on the Rakshasa mask was cold and gloomy. She was too lazy to catch them one by one, so she simply called out their names. Those on the eaves 30 degrees to the left. The flower bed at the back. The bushes at the front. The wall hanging on the left. The pillars on the right. Everyone who is hiding, come out. These people were the ones who were ordered by Yi Qianxian to monitor Luo Qingtong. The man had left, but these people were still loyal to Luo Qingtong's residence. Now they were all caught by Luo Qingtong. Swish, swish, swish. A group of people walked out from their hiding places hesitantly. Luo Qingtong looked at them with a cold smile and walked over. You guys are pretty good. Luo Qingtong looked at them, the smile on her lips cold and evil. I deliberately didn't catch you guys and let you complete your task properly. You just watched as my residents suffered? Good. Not bad. You can do it. The group of people who were ordered to monitor Luo Qingtong were in a mess. So, Lord Evil Doctor had discovered them long ago? Those patrol routes that happened to pass by their hiding places every day were not a coincidence at all. But very quickly when they heard Luo Qingtong's words, they felt bitter again. Lord Evil Doctor, it's not that we don't want to take action. We were spying on you from the shadows. If we take action, won't we expose ourselves? Everyone wanted to cry but had no tears. Under Luo Qingtong's stare, they cowered and didn't dare to make a sound. They didn't know why they were afraid. But he still felt that Lord Evil Doctor's aura was very scary. Luo Qingtong also knew that their duties couldn't be exposed at will. She had no intention of pursuing this matter. She had only pulled these people out for one thing. Tell me about those people. Although these people didn't make a move, they were ordered to monitor his residence. They must have seen those people make a move. He might even know where the other party is now. After all, he was a professional in this industry. Luo Qingtong was too lazy to wait for the people of the bloody arena to investigate. By the time they found out, it would be too late. Who knew what those people would do if they caught Suyu? As for her people, other than herself, she would chop off their claws if they dared to touch her. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't tell me, I'll tell your city lord that you exposed your identities to me. You should know what will happen if you do that, right? Luo Qingtong looked at them coldly. Actually, I don't care if you guys are watching me. Isn't it the same no matter who it is? But the premise is that it's good for both of us, right? Luo Qingtong said and patted them on the shoulder. You can monitor me, but you can't ignore this kind of thing. Otherwise, I'll be very unhappy. And I'll be unhappy. Chapter 147. Understood. How could they dare to say they didn't understand? Luo Qingtong's meaning was very clear. In the future, they would be ordered to protect her instead of monitoring her. If anything happened to her residents, she would settle the score with them. The group of people were instantly changed by Luo Qingtong, and they couldn't even say a word. They were mentally exhausted. But they couldn't afford to offend this lady. This was someone that their lord had specially instructed them to pay attention to. They didn't dare to resist. Under Luo Qingtong's threat, the group of people obediently revealed the details of the attackers. People sent by the Cheng clan of the Rising Sun country? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. So they're from an aristocratic family of a high-class country. No wonder they're so arrogant. She sneered. The cause of the matter was very simple. A disciple of the Cheng clan from the high-class country had some conflicts with Suyu. Now that the Cheng clan was in trouble, he heard that Suyu was sold as a slave, so he wanted to buy her back and torture her. It was said that Luo Qingtong didn't want to give up after buying her. But they didn't expect that Luo Qingtong gave Suyu so much authority. The group of people arrogantly came to ask for her, but Suyu ordered people to beat them out. That night, they directly covered their faces and came to kidnap her. At this time, they had already left the Blackfield city and were probably preparing to return. Luo Qingtong sneered in her heart. It seems that my reputation as an evil doctor isn't big enough. How dare any Tom, Dick, and Harry find trouble with me? The bloody light in her eyes was cold. The steward of the bloody arena who had yet to leave trembled when he heard that. He hurriedly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said, Lord Evil Doctor, don't worry. There won't be a next time. We, the bloody arena, will immediately send a warning to the Qing clan through the Blackfield city of the Rising Sun country. They are not allowed to do anything against Lord Evil Doctor's subordinates. Otherwise they will be punished by the bloody arena. That had better be the case. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and looked at them. Then he waved his hand and said, All right, you can all return to your positions. Remember, there will be no next time. They had already left the Blackfield subsidy. It was impossible to rely on the people from the Blackfield. Luo Qingtong narrowed her empty black eyes and sneered. Did they think that they could rest easy after leaving the Blackfield subsidy? You guys stay in the mansion and clean it up. I'll be back soon. Luo Qingtong looked at Chu Lingfeng and said after the surveillance team and the people of the bloody arena left. Since Suyu wasn't here, Luo Qingtong naturally handed over the matters of the mansion to the blockhead. Chu Lingfeng was a little silly, but there was one good thing about him. That was to only listen to Luo Qingtong's orders. What a one-track mind. Luo Qingtong was relieved to leave the matter to him. When I'm not in the mansion, I won't see anyone. If anyone dares to trespass, kill without mercy. Chu Lingfeng said with a murderous look. The blockhead spent all his time in the bloody arena. He didn't learn anything else, but he learned how to kill decisively and have a strong murderous aura. If not for this, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have accepted him. She didn't need an idiot who only knew how to cry by her side. It was good that Chu Lingfeng was like this. Luo Qingtong didn't think there was anything wrong with his foolishness. Master, you must save Suyu. After that murderous sentence, Chu Lingfeng returned to his silly character. Chapter 148. This blockhead, although he was stupid, he wasn't stupid. Luo Qingtong glanced at him and smiled. Who told you that I'm going to save Suyu? Isn't that so? Chu Lingfeng looked at Luo Qingtong with a stupefied expression. Master, you can't leave Suyu alone. He's very good to us. He's also very loyal and devoted to Master. Taking Luo Qingtong's words seriously, Chu Lingfeng became anxious. Such a big blockhead pounced on Luo Qingtong with a swish. Stop. Luo Qingtong raised her hand to stop him. This blockhead, why is he like a big wolf dog pouncing on me every time she said he would? Luo Qingtong looked at the clothes she had just changed into, and then looked at his body that was mixed with blood and mud. Her lips suddenly twitched. "Okay, I'll go save him. Hurry and wash your body clean, and apply the medicine while you're at it." She was just teasing this blockhead for fun, but she didn't expect him to take it seriously. At this time, if she didn't go out to save Suyu, could it be that she went out to look at the scenery? "Honestly, look after the house and wait for me to come back," Luo Qingtong said, and a bloodthirsty smile appeared on her lips. She turned to look at the battle slaves standing not far away. Looking at the big and small injuries on their bodies, she suddenly narrowed her eyes. "All of you come here," she ordered them. The group of people all stood in front of Luo Qingtong. The girl looked at them and suddenly released her mental strength. Pa pa pa. Under countless crisp sounds, these stupefied battle slaves' bodies shook fiercely, and they looked at Luo Qingtong with regret. "Master." They looked at Luo Qingtong with shock, just like Suyu when his slave imprint was shattered. Their hearts were also full of disbelief. Did the master destroy the slave imprint in their minds? Wasn't she afraid that they would betray her? Especially those martial marquis experts, their gazes towards Luo Qingtong were even more shocked. "Don't look at me like that." Luo Qingtong looked at them indifferently. "Although the slave imprint can guarantee your loyalty, it prevents you from fully displaying your strength. I don't want something like this to happen again. Also, since I dared to remove the slave imprint in your body, I'm confident that I won't suffer any backlash from you. If you don't believe me, you can give it a try." Luo Qingtong originally planned to remove the slave imprint on these battle slaves soon. She didn't want to leave any hidden dangers around her. In particular, the slave imprints not only restricted the loyalty of these people, but also restricted their strength, making them unable to fully display their strength. Otherwise, with so many slaves in Luo Qingtong's residence, even if the Chung clan of the Rising Sun country came, they shouldn't have been beaten so badly. And Suyu was taken away. This was simply a great humiliation. Luo Qingtong directly shattered the slave imprint in their bodies. If these people knew their place, there would naturally be benefits for them in the future. If they didn't know their place, did they really think that her slave imprint could be removed so easily? Luo Qingtong didn't mind if someone tried to test the law and let the others see the outcome. "We obey master's orders." The group of battle slaves was silent for a moment, then they all kneeled on the ground and sincerely acknowledged their allegiance. Luo Qingtong's methods were unfathomable. It was their fortune to be able to follow such a master. Furthermore, the other party gave them a new life. "Very good. Martial Marquis, follow me, the rest stay here," Luo Qingtong said and leaped away. Chapter 149. Thousands of meters away from the Blackfield subsidy, a rather luxurious flying boat was docked at the foot of a mountain. The door of the flying boat opened and a group of people walked out. "Elder Lu, I didn't expect to meet you here. It's really a great fortune," a man who looked like a steward said respectfully to a middle-aged man who was dressed in an elder's attire and had a shocking aura. "With you around, we don't have to worry about our journey." "Yes." Elder Lu nodded. "I just came back from the capital of Eastern Fence Nation. I had some matters to attend to, but I returned empty-handed." He sighed at this point, and a trace of unwillingness faintly appeared on his face. When the steward heard this, he exchanged glances with the guard beside him. They both knew what the steward was talking about. The news of the celestial sect's ruins appearing near the capital of the Eastern Fence Nation had already spread throughout the entire Great Qin sacred dynasty. Countless powerful cultivators had traveled day and night to go there, but in the end, all of them returned empty-handed. It seemed that this Elder Lu was the same. However, this was also their fortune. With this martial king Elder Lu, they didn't have to worry about not being able to return safely. "You're here to do something for young Master Ling Yun?" Elder Lu asked as his gaze swept across the huge iron cage they were carrying. "That's right." The steward smiled. "It's just a small matter. An enemy of young Master Ling Yun's younger brother was sold as a slave. Young Master's younger brother asked us to buy him back to vent our anger. Isn't he locked in this iron cage? We're just waiting to bring him back to vent our anger for young Master's younger brother. This flying boat was also given to us by young Master to do something for him. Let's go and return quickly." The steward laughed. He didn't say that the person was snatched from Luo Qingtong. Just as Luo Qingtong thought, this steward was used to flaunting his power in the Qing family of a high-class nation. He didn't think that there was anything to be afraid of from an evil doctor in a small Blackfield subsidy of Eastern Fence Nation. What kind of powerful person could come from such a remote and desolate place? The steward didn't know Luo Qingtong's status in the Blackfield. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to be so presumptuous. Even the bloody arena had to treat him as a guest of honor. Was he someone they could offend? Unfortunately, he didn't know anything. Moreover, she relied on the fact that she was working for young Master Ling Yun and the fact that the other party was a genius of the Great Chu Sacred Academy, so she didn't put Luo Qingtong, this evil doctor, in her eyes. So much so that it was too late for regrets. Because of this, the Chung clan was in big trouble. Elder Lu nodded when he heard that and did not say anything else. Although he didn't receive any news about the immortal sect's ruins after returning from the Eastern Fence Nation's Nine Shamans Mountain, he still received a lot of benefits. He wanted to study it properly, so he didn't pay much attention to what the steward wanted him to do. He asked casually and then ignored him. A group of people started a bonfire in the open space next to them and threw Su Yu's cage to the side. Bang! After a violent vibration, the cage tilted, revealing Su Yu, who was imprisoned inside. Her limbs were chained and tied to the four corners of the cage. Her beautiful face, which didn't lose to any man, was pale from the loss of blood. Only her eyes, which were as wild as a wolf, stared at the steward and the Cheng clan guards. "What are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll dig out your eyes." Chapter 150. A lowly prisoner. How dare you be so impudent? The steward sneered as he looked at the huge iron cage that was tumbling around. "Su Yu, third young master Su. Do you still think you're the Su family's young master Ruyu? The Su family has long been exterminated. You, young master Ruyu, have also become a slave in someone else's hands. How is it? Did you enjoy the suffering on the flying ship just now? If you don't behave and put away your horrifying gaze, I'll dig your eyes out. Let's see if you still dare to look at me like that." Su Yu didn't say anything. That pair of unruly and cold eyes never left the steward. Seeing that Su Yu wasn't moved by force or persuasion, the steward was extremely enraged. He couldn't really dig Su Yu's eyes out. One had to know that young Master Ling Yun's younger brother had indicated that he wanted to bring Su Yu back for him to torture. Under such circumstances, how could he overstep his authority? However, he was unwilling to be stared at by Su Yu like this. Suddenly, his eyes turned as if he thought of something. He sneered and said to Su Yu maliciously, "Young Master Su Yu, do you know how your Su family was exterminated?" TSK. Losing the important border city caused the army to suffer a crushing defeat. The Su family's commander-in-chief was killed, and the entire family was convicted. Aren't you curious? Why is it that your Su family has been in charge of the army for generations and has never made any mistakes before? Why did you make such a huge mistake in such an important battle? When Su Yu heard this, she was shocked. Her expression, which had not changed, suddenly changed. "It's you?" she said hoarsely. That hoarse voice still couldn't hide the coldness in it. However, at this moment, this coldness was completely tainted with fiery anger and hatred. "It's you? It's the Qing family. You destroyed my Su family." She struggled to get up, and the iron chains on her limbs made crisp clanging sounds. "Ah, that's right. It must be very painful, right? Actually, it's not just the Qing family but also the imperial family. Who asked your Su family to be so meritorious to the emperor? You even went against our Qing family. Perfect. Our eldest young master has entered the Great Chu Sacred Academy. Your Su family can only become an abandoned child. Who told your brilliant elder brother to die so early? Without such a powerful person, your Su family can only be destroyed." The steward looked at Su Yu's pained expression and laughed out loud. Although he couldn't torture Su Yu, he could still torture him in this way. What Su family's young master? She was still a slave and a prisoner. In the past, when the Su family was flourishing, he didn't even have the qualifications to look up to a young master like Su Yu. But now he could only be locked in a cage and humiliated. Looking at Su Yu's eyes that looked like she wanted to kill him but couldn't do anything, the steward was very pleased. TSK, you still don't know, right? When your Su family was destroyed, I was also present. Sigh. The screams that filled the courtyard were heart-wrenching. All right. The taste of your Su family's miss is quite good. Ah. The steward said with a smug look on his face. "I'll kill you. I'll kill all of you." Su Yu went crazy. Anyone who knew the cruel truth would not be able to bear it. Suyu had always thought that the loss of that war was a mistake of the Su family. Therefore, when facing the imperial family's punishment, the Su family didn't have any resistance. Her father even committed suicide with guilt. The entire Su family army fell apart. All the Su family's generals were convicted. She was even captured by the enemy and sold as a slave. But now she found out that this was a trap. A conspiracy concocted by the imperial family and the Qing family to deal with the Su family. Chapter 151. I'm going to kill all of you. I'm going to kill all of you. Suyu struggled frantically. Her cultivation was suppressed and she could not use any of her strength. Her hands scratched the iron chain and blood instantly flowed out. Haha. Looking at Suyu's painful appearance, the steward laughed arrogantly. Scream all you want. When you reach the Qing family, there will be more painful things for you. At this moment, a cold voice sounded. Is that so? Unfortunately, you won't have the chance to bring her back. The moment the voice sounded, a ghostly figure appeared in front of them from afar. Who are you? Hearing the voice, the steward of the Qing family instantly shouted. He took a step back and stared vigilantly at the direction where the figure appeared. His expression was extremely alert. From the other party's words, it seemed that he was here for Suyu. Behind him, a group of guards also stood up and quickly surrounded him. Elder Lu, who was resting with his eyes closed, also opened his eyes. You don't have the right to know who I am. Luo Qingtong's figure slowly appeared beside the iron cage. Looking at Suyu, who was locked in the cage like a dog, Luo Qingtong's expression suddenly turned cold. You only need to know that I'm the one who wants your life. How dare they treat the people around her like this? These people from the Qing family were courting death. Master. Seeing Luo Qingtong appear, Suyu's cold and desperate heart was filled with warmth. She did not expect Luo Qingtong to specially come to save her. When she was taken away from the mansion by the Qing clan, she had already given up all hope. When she knew the truth about the Su family's destruction, she was even more desperate. The Qing family was a first-class family in the Rising Sun country. If the Su family was still around, they could still fight against them. But now, Suyu's eyes were filled with extreme pain. Master, don't worry about me. Go quickly. There are martial king experts here. Before Suyu could finish his words, the steward of the Qing family had already looked at Luo Qingtong maliciously. It turned out that the master and the slave had deep feelings for each other. Are you the evil doctor who bought Suyu's jade? They actually chased him all the way here. Just as well, then I'll capture them both. Be our Qing clan's slave. Although the manager didn't think that Luo Qingtong had any ability, he still felt that she was a swindler. It was just a stroke of luck that made him famous in the Blackfield subsidy of the Eastern Fence country. However, if he could make Suyu suffer, he was still very willing to do it. This would definitely make the young master's younger brother very happy. At that time, there would be many benefits for him. Sure enough, after hearing his words, Suyu bit her lip hard and hurriedly said to Luo Qingtong, Mistress, hurry and leave. Don't worry about me. This is a grudge between our Su family and the Qing family. It has nothing to do with you. It was enough for Mistress to give her freedom and a new life. She couldn't implicate Mistress anymore. Want to leave? It's too late. The manager sneered and raised his hand. Capture her. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes at the manager. When the guards rushed up, she also raised her hand and made a gesture. Surround them all. Don't let anyone go. She was going to start a massacre today. Swish, swish, swish. Chapter 152. You dare to show off in front of our Qing clan with just a few martial marquis? The steward looked at the martial marquis experts who appeared behind Luo Qingtong. He felt an indescribable sense of mockery in his heart and laughed loudly. You are indeed a country bumpkin from the Eastern Fence country. You think you can do anything to us with just a few martial marquis experts? Let me tell you, in our Rising Sun country, martial marquis experts are just elite guards. Your martial marquis slaves were beaten to a pulp by us. If not for the fact that we are in the Blackfields territory, do you think they can escape unscathed? I didn't expect you to bring them to encircle and annihilate us. The steward laughed wantonly. Young Master Suyu? He mocked, this is your master? She doesn't seem to be very smart. You are not allowed to insult my master. Suyu's eyes were bloodshot as she struggled desperately against the chains on the iron cage. If not for her, her master would not have been humiliated. Master. Leave quickly. Leave. Luo Qingtong did not look at her. She only looked at the laughing steward. You talk too much nonsense. She lowered her eyes and in the next second, her figure suddenly flew up. You are courting death. Seeing Luo Qingtong rushing towards him, the steward's expression suddenly became serious. The aura on his body suddenly exploded. It was the aura of a martial marquis. Furthermore, it was the strength of a 6th-stage martial marquis. He went up to Luo Qingtong. I originally wanted to make fun of you. Since you are courting death, I will fulfill your wish. He sneered. Leave this evil doctor to me. The rest of you surround and kill those martial marquis slaves. He said in a deep voice. However, before he could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong, who should have been hundreds of meters away, suddenly appeared in front of him. The death blade in her hand fiercely slashed. In an instant, blood splattered. The steward's throat was instantly cut open. I told you you talk too much nonsense. In front of Luo Qingtong's eye technique, the manager's every move was under her observation. That steward thought that she had appeared in front of him in an instant, but in reality, Luo Qingtong had already seen through his next move through her eye technique and had deliberately waited for him at that place. It was equivalent to the steward bumping into Luo Qingtong's death blade. You. The steward clutched his throat that had been cut open and looked at Luo Qingtong with shock in his eyes. With a thump he fell backwards. An instant kill. From start to finish, Luo Qingtong and this steward's opponent had not lasted more than 10 breaths of time. Everyone was stunned. The guards who were rushing towards the battle slaves were instantly dumbfounded. The manager died just like that. Although his strength wasn't considered high among them, it wasn't low either. An expert of the 6th level of martial marquis was actually slashed in the throat by a sword. They were shocked in their hearts. Although everyone could see that Luo Qingtong was able to do this because it was unexpected. But even if it was unexpected, you still needed to have the corresponding strength. The opponent's aura was clearly not at the great martial general realm. For a great martial general to kill a martial marquis was already considered a genius that appeared once in 100 years. Luo Qingtong had directly jumped 2 realms to kill the enemy. And it was a fatal blow. Chapter 153. Swish. While they were still in a daze, Luo Qingtong's figure flashed once again. Her strength had risen to the 9th stage of the martial general realm, and she was able to display her full strength. It could be said that Luo Qingtong's movements completely represented the peak of strength at this stage. Even if it was a genius expert with the same cultivation level, in front of Luo Qingtong, they would not be able to control their strength as accurately as her. They would not be able to display their strength as much as her. If it was said that a 9th stage martial general genius could display 200% of their strength, then Luo Qingtong's strength had no upper limit. At this stage, where the strongest strength that could be displayed was where Luo Qingtong's strength was at. The reason why there was such an effect was because under Luo Qingtong's eye technique, she was able to grasp the strength of her body like the back of her hand. When a person was able to completely understand their own strength, they would be able to use every bit of strength in their body at will. The difference between the different stages would not be that big. Using a simple example, a high school student could use a high school formula to solve a problem. A middle school student, as long as his brain was developed enough, could also use a middle school formula to solve the problem. Under this kind of situation, was there any difference between the two? It was even possible that the middle school student's final solution would be even more perfect. Who do you think is more powerful? Under the martial king realm, as long as the cultivator did not reach the xianxia unity stage, they would not be able to resonate with the power of heaven and earth. In front of Luo Qingtong, there would be no difference between them and a sieve. There would be flaws everywhere. As long as she could find those flaws, and when the opponent tried to cover them up in time, she would quickly break them. Then even if it was a martial lord expert in front of her, they would not be able to withstand a single blow. Luo Qingtong's biggest problem was that her strength was not enough to break through the opponent's defense. And with the strength of a 9th stage martial general, coupled with the cutting ability of the death blade, it was just enough to break through the defense of a martial lord. She could kill these people like chopping melons and vegetables. Only experts at the peak of the martial marquis realm could barely withstand her attack. But they could only barely withstand it. Luo Qingtong stared coldly at the guard commander who was at the peak of martial lord realm. This person was the strongest among the steward's guards. With the strength of a peak martial marquis, he withstood every single one of her attacks. Every time, the death blade was so close to breaking through the opponent's defense and taking his life. But she was so close that Luo Qingtong could not break through his defense. Ah! There's nothing you can do to me. The guard commander who was at the peak of the martial lord realm started to panic. Luo Qingtong's speed was too fast. Almost in an instant the guards around him all fell down. The steward's words were a complete joke. What about surrounding and killing the other party's martial lord realm slaves? They hadn't even touched the other party's slaves yet. Almost all of them were killed by this evil doctor alone. This guard commander finally understood why Luo Qingtong dared to chase after them with a few martial lord realm slaves. It turned out that the other party was completely confident. Fortunately, the other party seemed to be unable to do anything to him. This caused the guard commander's heart to rise with infinite hope. He laughed loudly and pounced towards Luo Qingtong. As for those martial lord realm slaves, he did not even put them in his eyes. These people were under the control of the slave imprint and could not fully display their strength. He could kill them all with one hand. Chapter 154. Swish. Luo Qingtong's body rose again. The death blade in her hand suddenly changed its form, turning into a milky white life blade state. She slashed down. Under the life blade, the defense of the peak martial lord, which was originally unbreakable, was instantly absorbed by the life blade. At the same time, the defensive power of the peak martial lord also stagnated. Now is the time. Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed. Under the dark red 3D vision, the flaws in the body of the expert at the peak of the martial lord realm were instantly revealed. This time the flaw was a flaw that could be broken. Boom. The life and death sword in Luo Qingtong's hand instantly changed its form again. Under the absorption state of the life blade, the strength of the peak martial lord was slightly weakened. But Luo Qingtong's strength slightly increased. Under this situation, Luo Qingtong's death blade instantly pierced through the opponent's defense and went straight for his heart. Bang! The tip of the sword penetrated his chest and came out from the back. Luo Qingtong's lips revealed a smile like a bloodthirsty demon flower, and she turned the long sword in her hand. With a boom, the expert at the peak of the martial lord realm did not even have time to react before his heart was minced into pieces. Bang! Luo Qingtong lifted her foot and kicked his body to the side. The few martial lord realm slaves at the side were dumbfounded. Especially the peak martial lord slave expert. Originally, when he saw that Luo Qingtong could not break the defense of the peak martial lord guard, he wanted to come up and help. But before he could rush up, Luo Qingtong had already killed the guard commander who was at the peak of martial lord realm with one strike. Master is actually so powerful. Looking at the terrifying death of the guard commander, the peak martial lord battle slave expert's expression froze for a while. He shrunk his neck and inexplicably felt a burst of cold air. He secretly rejoiced that when the slave mark was removed, he did not have the thought of defecting. Otherwise, his fate would not be much better than the guard commander's. The master of the demonic doctor was too powerful. Obviously, the aura emitted from her body was not at the great martial general realm. It was really too terrifying. If Luo Qingtong was also a martial marquis expert, this peak martial marquis battle slave expert would not be so afraid. But Luo Qingtong, she was not even at the great martial general realm. Where could he find such a terrifying martial general realm expert? Is she still human? Just as the group of martial marquis realm battle slaves were shocked by the terrifying degree of their master, on the other side Elder Lu, who had watched the entire process of the Qing family being destroyed, was ecstatic. Good sword. He looked greedily at the life and death sword in Luo Qingtong's hand. He did not know Luo Qingtong's hidden card, so he thought that Luo Qingtong's great power was the blessing of the life and death sword. It could allow a martial general realm expert to directly kill an enemy 2 realms higher. What kind of divine weapon was this sword? If he could get it, wouldn't his strength increase greatly? At that time, not to mention the Qing family, he could even do whatever he wanted in the big empires. Wouldn't those super families of the sacred dynasty treat him as a distinguished guest? Chapter 155. Fancy the sword in my hand? Old dog, I'm afraid you won't have the life to take it. Luo Qingtong raised her hand to shake off the blood on her sword. She tilted her sword slightly and pointed it at the ground. She raised her hand and pointed the tip of the sword at Elder Lu. Come and take it if you can. That disdainful attitude and provocation instantly made the veins on Elder Lu's forehead bulge. He was furious. What did you say? You're courting death. As he spoke, he suddenly rushed towards Luo Qingtong. I'm kind enough to give you a way out, but you don't want it. Then go to hell. Elder Lu's voice was filled with rage. His claws were like an eagle's hook as they viciously clawed at Luo Qingtong. At the same time, his body erupted with a power that only a martial king expert could possess. The surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth was stirred up by the eruption of his aura. Martial king realm, Khanate unity. The power in one's body could be manipulated at will, and it could also manipulate the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth to create momentum. At the beginning, Elder Lu's claw only contained 50% of his strength. But after the momentum was created, the attack power instantly increased to 100%. This was the unique advantage of a martial king expert. When they reached the martial king realm, they could release the energy from their body and add another layer of attack power on top of their own attacks. Bam! Following Elder Lu's claw, there seemed to be a loud sound in the air. The attack power of this claw was actually able to tear the air apart and create a sonic boom. Master! Suyu had just been released from the iron cage by the other slave experts. When he raised his head and saw this scene, he instantly rushed towards Luo Qingtong without hesitation. The expressions of the other martial marquis experts also changed. They didn't expect that there would be a martial king expert in the team sent by the Cheng family. This was an expert who could establish a country. Even in a superior country like the Sunrise Country, he was a figure that was worshipped. He was an absolute expert. Why was there such an expert in the team that came to capture Suyu? Only someone at the level of a clan head or above would be able to order them around. Even if his opponent was only a cultivator who had just reached the martial emperor realm. However, Suyu was the only one who knew that Elder Lu had encountered the team sent by the Cheng clan to capture him. It was all his fault. If it wasn't for him, Master wouldn't have met the other party and wouldn't have been targeted. Master! Leave quickly. Let us stop him. Hurry back to Blackfield. Suyu rushed in front of Luo Qingtong and raised her hand to block the attack. When the other marquis-level battle slaves heard this, they quickly reacted. They were powerless against a martial king realm expert. They might as well risk their lives to protect their master and escape. With master's status and identity in Blackfield City, he would definitely be able to avenge them. Master, leave quickly. They also rushed up and instantly formed a human wall in front of Luo Qingtong. Leave. Don't even think about leaving. A ray of light suddenly burst out from Elder Lu's hand and fiercely blasted towards Luo Qingtong and the others. External release of energy. External attack. Looking at the horrifying attack coming towards them, Suyu and the others didn't even think about rushing forward. At this moment, a gentle force suddenly pushed them away. At this moment, a brilliant black light suddenly shot out from behind them. Chapter 156. There was a loud explosion. The black light that flew out from behind them collided with Elder Lu's blast of energy. Under this heavy explosion, the surrounding air instantly exploded. A huge gust of wind exploded. Waves of aftershocks blasted in all directions. Suyu and those martial marquis battle slaves were blown away by the violent force. Their bodies swayed left and right and they almost fell to the ground. Master? Suyu turned around wanting to see who saved them. He suddenly turned around and saw Luo Qingtong standing behind them with the death blade. There was no one else except her. That attack just now was sent out by Master? Suyu and the other battle slaves were dumbfounded as they watched the scene unfold. That was an off-body attack that only martial kings could launch. How did Master do it? Their gazes involuntarily focused on the death blade in Luo Qingtong's hand. This sword is so powerful. Indeed, that attack just now was launched by Luo Qingtong with the death blade. When Luo Qingtong obtained the life and death sword, she was already able to use the death blade to launch a sword attack that only martial kings could launch. But at that time, the power in her body was not enough. She could barely launch one attack. But now it was not like this. Old dog, you want to steal my sword with your little strength? You're boasting too shamelessly. Seeing that Suyu and the others were almost killed, Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold and she directly waved her hand. Swish. The biting cold black light penetrated the death blade like the light of a death scythe and heavily chopped at Elder Lu in front of her. The latter was now looking at the life and death duality sword like a hungry wolf. Good. Good sword. A peerless sword. Elder Lu's heart was filled with indescribable ecstasy. The surprise that this sword gave him was simply too great. Previously, it was enough to make Luo Qingtong kill a martial marquis expert. Who would have thought that it would be able to make a martial general realm expert directly release a sword chi attack to fight against him, a martial king realm expert? Good. This is great. Such a peerless treasure. She was destined to be his. Ah. Originally, I wanted to spare your lives to torture you. Now I've changed my mind. All of you must die. Someone who had seen this sword. All of you must die. Such a peerless sword. I must hide it well. I can't let anyone know. I was right to let the Cheng family's people be killed by this evil doctor. Haha. He laughed loudly. With a boom, the aura around him exploded. A fiery red long sword instantly appeared in his hand. I'll let you see what the true strength of a martial king is. That's not something that can be compared to the sword chi that you can release with a sword. As he spoke, he raised his hand and waved it. A sword light several meters long shot out from the long sword and rushed towards Luo Qingtong. Master. Be careful. Su Yu and the others felt their hearts tighten as they watched. Although their master could release a sword light that only a martial king could have, she was not a real martial king. Would Mistress be able to block this move? Just as their hearts tightened, the two sword lights collided in mid-air. Boom. Luo Qingtong's sword light was suddenly broken. Seeing that Elder Lu's attack was about to penetrate, Su Yu and the others could not help but scream. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.